2, 3, 4. Okay. Handoff with Peru and Seattle and Atlanta all in one place. And it is the handoff, and it is the Raul Ruiz-Diaz conversation. Nino had this as a topic. Nino had this as a topic for us in general. And with the ties and the topics of conversation, I want to start with you, Niko. Nino, your question and your comments about Raul Ruiz-Diaz this week, go.
Raul is here in Peru. Niko, first of all, good morning. Good morning, my friend. Good morning. Good morning, Niko. He's in Peru already. He's, having ceviche with his fans, with his friends here. He left Seattle behind. Are they going to sell him? What's the deal? Because I know the contract is over. So what's the? Do you have anything consistent or that I should believe that he's going to go?
Yeah, I mean, nothing's changed. I mean, everything that he's doing right now, everything that's in his thought process is exactly the same as we've spoken in every single time we've over the last, 2, 3 months, 6 months even.
It's a telenovela, brother.
Every this last window, right? I mean, he's just on vacation, obviously with his family. Clearly, something that he needs to do is take some time off, recharge. But although there will be conversations with Lau, and I'm sure that there's going to be some proximity with that club. It is my understanding that right now, especially as of today, the 12th, he's going to be taking a lot of offers, or at least several offers, from various teams, and he's going to continue to prioritize MLS. I've said this a couple of times. I think MLS and Liga MX are the two markets where Raul Ruiz-Diaz is more likely to go than Peru. I could see him doing things in either one of those markets before he goes to Peru. I will say that there is a new team that I did not think would be in the cards, and it's now a possibility. So, and it's within MLS. So clearly, a player like Raul Ruiz-Diaz, as I thought initially, is attractive for many reasons. Is attractive because there is a potential of reviving that career. Someone who's experienced, who's a locker room guy. So there is quite a few opportunities in MLS that I think ultimately will be where he lands.
Okay.
Man.
All right. Yeah, I know that the disappointment.
And I'm just trying to realize I might have messed up the tweet that I put out with our show. I hope I didn't put David Ferreira and instead of Jesus Ferreira. Oh my goodness.
Hey.
I'm hoping I didn't mess that up.
Well, go check your tweet real quick before so as we send the howdy doos. And so what matches are you calling this weekend, Nino?
We got the Portuguese top flight division, of course. We got Benfica's game. We got the Sporting game. We got the Porto game this weekend, and we got the Dutch Cup coming up. Yeah, Dutch Cup coming up. We got the PSV game on what's this Tuesday. On Tuesday, we got that game.
Well, as always, my friend, great to see you and great to watch you on Gold TV and through our friends at Fanatis, fntz.co/soccer down here. Helps out Gold TV, helps out Fanatis, and helps out us watch you on a weekly basis. Thank you, my friend. As always, be safe, be well, and we will try and say words that won't get us in trouble like FIFA, World, and Cup all in the same sentence. We love
Thank you for having me, John. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Niko. See you. Bye-bye.
All right.
Bye.
All right. So, all right. That's Nino. Great to go fully loaded with him. Yeah, because we were talking about the idea that the 2030 and 2034 planetary competition. See, I'm trying not to say FIFA, World, and Cup and the years all in the same thing because it's trademarked, and I don't want to get us in trouble with the soccer police.
That is crazy.
Yeah, I don't want to get us into any kind of trouble because who knows. But if I was to say 2030 FIFA World Cup trademark, maybe I can get away with that.
There you go.
So the trademarked planetary soccer competition in 2030 is going to be played in 6 countries. You're going to have, as a part of the Centenario, the 3 countries in South America plus the 3 European countries, And one of the things that Nino was getting into is like, man, 6 countries is entirely too much.
It is too much.
So
It is too much.
that's what we were getting into. One of our plus ones, Alex, was wondering about the club that you might be referencing involving Raul Ruidiaz, and does the club's name rhyme with Batlanta?
No, I think that one had been interested, and I think that they are one of the top candidates. But no, this one was new and it came out of the blues, and yeah, that's all I'm gonna say. Because if I say anything else, you guys will figure it out. But yeah, there's just another team that added on to it. But again, I feel like Raul Ruidiaz, he is a player that several teams, and I've spoken to several GMs and sporting directors, they still rate him. They still rate him. They still think he can produce at the right price. I think that he's a player that going into a very convoluted schedule in 2025 for several clubs. Why not take a guy like that?
Yeah, and so free agency kicks in at 1 o'clock Eastern time, so 2 hours and 16 minutes from now. And I was wondering, because there are some names that you have been mentioning about possible additions up there in Seattle, that, you know, is it like starting at 9:30 your time, 12:30 our time? Do folks in rental cars just start pulling up to houses and they kind of wait on the curb, and there's a player agent standing in the sidewalk leading up to the front door of the house? Is Paul Arriola's agent standing on the front stoop of Paul Arriola's house going to give numbers to folks as they come up in rental cars? It's like, yes, you're number one. You can see Mr. Arriola right at 1 o'clock Eastern time. You know, Mikey Veras and Tyler Heaps come up. Yes, you're number two. You half hour later. How does this situation work? And is this literally going to be something that you're banging on the door at 1 o'clock Eastern time? Paul, we need to talk. One of those kinds of things. So what's the latest?
This is the latest. And it all started with when we with Sounder Hard broke the news of Jesus Ferreira. And before we talk about Paul, that's where it all started. That's when I found out that there was a Kmart type of fire sale at Dallas. Yeah. So the fact that they're cleaning house, there is absolutely something that in Dallas is without a doubt somewhere where not just Seattle, but very many teams are kind of looking into. A team like Seattle that, I don't want to say they're going to moneyball next season, but, they're always happy to bring in players that paired the press conference, end of season press conference with the team, with Craig Weibel and Brian Smetzer. They both talked about, maybe looking for experience within MLS, players that are going to be able to provide something immediately, that they're proven commodities. And I think because the Dallas fire sale was in big ball letters, come in, get that discount, get your player, maybe get buy one, get the second one half off. I think that's what this whole thing kind of came about. So I only had reference Jesus Ferreira, and I knew that it was close to being done. Maybe that was something that we ended up adjusting and just saying that Jesus Ferreira was in advanced talks with the Sounders. And the reason of that is because he's clearly in a DP contract right now. He's making 2 point something, and there's going to have to be some restructure, and there's going to be some modifications. You can manipulate certain ways, especially when it's a transfer, when it's a trade and not necessarily a buy for the player. So there's a lot of things that still needed to get squared away with Jesus Ferreira. Then the next day, I am at my daughter's soccer game, and all of a sudden I hear this Paul Arriola thing, and I literally almost fall off my chair, because maybe I should have seen it coming, because I had heard of how much this Dallas team was trying to get rid of players and kind of clean house. Did my research, call a couple of people, and sure, when it's Tom Bogert on the announcement on the report, you kind of already take it for what it is, right? And it sounds like, look, Jesus Ferreira was not in the best terms with Dallas. He was unhappy. I think it seems to be a situation where both club and player want to figure out how to get him out. So Paul Arriola, in a similar way, him being unprotected is something that I think was a given, obviously, with San Diego potentially being able to get him. So all in all, it all worked out so that Seattle could kind of jump on this opportunity where even if Dallas has to cover partial part of his salary, because that is what is being reported, very believable because of what I just mentioned, the politics and the problems that are in Dallas, and the opportunity for Seattle to kind of jump on two experienced players that might not be that big name that people were expecting, but without a doubt, two pieces that are going to come in and produce and be effective, and that gives Seattle a lot of possibilities on the attacking end. I mean, Jesus Ferreira could play as a second striker. He could play as a false nine. He could play out wide. Paul Arriola himself is a good, experienced winger. He could do a lot of things in the inside channels as well. So two quality players. Very interesting thing how everything played out. But to your point, I think that the traffic being managed might not be by Paul's agent, but more Dallas as a club just basically showing off a whole bunch of open houses for their players and seeing what clubs want to take away from Dallas right now.
I have this vision perhaps at the FC Dallas headquarters where the security guard, he's there at the gate, and you've got the gate with the dude, and he's got, it's like he's looking at his clipboard and he's looking at the appointments list, and it's like okay, so noon Central Time. How do you smell Schmetzer? One of those kind of. I mean, if Dallas is having the fire sale, and it's these particular sections that are attached to it, I will be intrigued to see how they respond. Does that mean that folks come up from North Texas to try to fill those gaps? Did they try to do things financially feasibly? Kind of like other clubs. I want to see how they fill in those holes and try to invest in themselves, meaning Dallas as opposed to Seattle. San Diego had their 5 picks last night. They kept 3. They flipped 2. What did you think of the selections that Mikey Veras and Tyler Heaps made late last night Eastern time?
I mean, it was very uneventful. It really was, specifically. And I mean, it's understandable that San Diego probably wants to rather get some GAM and rather trade some players to add on international slots and things of that nature rather than get certain players. But I feel like there was a missed opportunity there. I think Joseph Lobson is a good player. I think he's polyfunctional. He could play midfield, he could play fullback. The sporting director for San Diego kind of talked a little bit about that. I think Diop is a good prospect and a player that could potentially be very interesting in the future, depending on how they develop him, how they work him out. But I don't know about you. When it's San Diego, I mean, San Diego, I don't know if you've ever been to San Diego, but it's a city that just kind of, it feels high end. It feels very uppity and money. And with the new lights of Los Angeles being as bright as they are, I was expecting for them to do a little bit more of a big signing in terms of what you had available. I agree with Tom Bogert, in fact, that I thought Davy Flores would have been a home run player that they could have grabbed from Toronto. I was looking at Jaboa, another guy that it's a quality guy, someone that's going to come in and produce. They already had added Andres Regis, or not officially, but we knew that that's something that is in the works. So they are doing a couple of things here and there. But in terms of this specific draft, it was just a little bit uneventful, a little bit underwhelming in terms of the overall potential that they could have had. The most intriguing guy was Thiago Andrade, and they ended up shipping him to Toronto. So that'll tell you exactly what I thought of the whole event, the whole thing that they try to put out was very underwhelming.
And this right now, they've got 13 players. And obviously, it is Chucky Lozano as your centerpiece. He's the dude that's going to be on all of the commercials, all of the billboards, all of the buses, all the transport. I mean, he'll be on. Look, if they could do a virtual Chucky Lozano and have him dressed as a lifeguard at Coronado Beach, saving folks and looking like Baywatch, that's what they're going to do with Chucky Lozano. You got Tomas Angel and Chucky Lozano up top. I'm thinking that you're probably going to go chasing after another big gun up top. And then, keeper. For me, what are you going to do? I mean, there were some good keepers that were on the list yesterday that they also didn't chase after. So I'm thinking another big gun, another big DP, maybe two to go with, an attacking mid or somebody that can be a good point guard, somebody on the left and somebody in net. But yeah, I was intrigued that right now they just seem to be adding bulk so they have a roster that they can dance with as opposed to the big names and then filling in the holes financially.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. I mean, I was looking at Panico. That was one of the guys that I thought maybe was going to get a look at. Stephen Cleveland, at least a little bit of experience to a certain extent of goalkeepers that were at a low salary, that were in a secondary position, and maybe they could be their starter. But obviously, these franchises, as we saw with St. Louis, they probably want to make a big impact signing there at the goalkeeping position. And look, don't get me wrong, Brusev's is a player that seemed interesting from Orlando. He's a U22 player with a lot of potential. So, I get where they're going there with a little bit of a high ceiling situation. But I think you're right. And I think I killed that name of the Colorado Rapids midfielder, but it was Joseph Lawson. He's the guy that was kind of talking about Jasper Lawson.
Yeah,
he's
Jasper
the guy that I was talking about. And he's another guy that, right, he could do a lot of things for you in San Diego. But again, all in all, when you got Chucky, when you got certain players, I thought there was an opportunity there to make a bigger impact. But I'm sure that they're going to go out here and make some top signings, like you said, to complement a guy like Tomas Angel. I don't see Tomas Angel starting for this team, to be quite honest. I think that they would go out there and perhaps get a bigger player than Tomas Angel. But that is still to be determined. All in all, yesterday, looking at the event that they put up on YouTube, I wasn't very sold on what I was hearing from that front office. So we'll see. It's a great setup. The fans were amazing. The facility looked great. I mean, all of the things around San Diego seemed pretty interesting. But what I was hearing from the front office just, I don't know, they didn't leave me very sold on the project so far.
Yeah, right now, Duran Ferreira and CJ Dos Santos right now are listed in the keeper position for San Diego FC. So we'll see. Obviously, my anticipation is that CJ will challenge for the number one spot with whomever else they bring in, unless they're profoundly confident that CJ Dos Santos is the man and has the space dust rubbed off from his time with Messi and friends, and that he'll be able to challenge as the number one when he goes to San Diego. The other thing, Major League Soccer-wise, that I wanted to talk to you about before we get into free agency and other possible moves and shakes and things like that this week was the notion that it could happen where Major League Soccer could change their approach outside of just having AM and actually do deals that would involve cash outside of the AM purview, where if you wanted to drop, say I go walking up to Messi and friends, and I think that I want Benja Kremoski, and instead of being laughed out of the building by Raul Sanlehi and Jorge Mas, they can sit there and name a price, 10, 15, whatever million. You could go, okay, sold. And then that would be outside of what we traditionally have with Garber bucks, with GAM and TAM and what have you. And you could have the idea of those kinds of deals inside the league if it's approved by the council of elders. What did you think about that finally, possibly, probably, maybe, perhaps coming to the fore as another way to do trades inside the league?
I think it's reasonable. And look, I think what we're seeing from MLS is that they're slowly and in their own way shifting to the way the world does things. Not something that I feel like it's necessary or that it's essential, but from talks about switching the calendar to talks about simplifying the way this type of transactions happen and getting rid of some of those Garber bucks. I love that term. I mean, it is ongoing, and it is something that I am for. As long as you don't lose certain things, like the salary cap space, which I believe, and I'm still an advocate for. But yeah, no, I think that there is already a system, and this is something that they've been talking about for at least a year to try to do, and now it's a real conversation. Now it's a real possibility. So I'm all in on it.
All right, so the off-season calendar, like I said, free agency, we've been talking a lot about free agency, and that's going to kick in about 2 hours, where people are going to be knocking on doors and trying to storm the gates of their favorite players and pick up what we're staring at here. So bona fide offers and all that stuff. The Adidas MLS College Showcase going on through Saturday. The expansion draft was last night. End-of-year waivers is also at 2 p.m. your time, 5 o'clock East Coast time. So that's reverse order. So once again, San Diego gets the 30th pick, eligible for selection players who don't meet minimum requirements for reentry process or free agency. Tomorrow is reentry stage 1. That's a part of everything. When you look at the activity of today, end of year waivers, free agency opening up, how exciting do you anticipate this day will be? Is it going to be everything that happens like right at 1 o'clock Eastern time, the storming of the gates, you get this rush of signings? Or are you anticipating, yeah, we'll get one, maybe another, and it'll be just kind of dialed out over time? How exciting are you anticipating this day being with free agency and such?
I think it's going to be a little bit slow. I anticipate it to be a little bit slow. I anticipated, the reentry draft is today as well, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, 5 o'clock, 2 o'clock.
I feel like there'll be some interesting signings, but the bigger moves, I feel like they will get done in a slower fashion. So I don't think it's going to be exciting right off the bat. I think it's going to be one of those horse races where your horse is kind of in the back until the last final third of the race. I think that's what we're going to see here today. It's going to be interesting to see how those bigger contracts of some of those players that are essentially either close to finishing their contracts or completely out of contract or in talks with teams. Like, let's say here in Seattle, Joe Pablo was a guy that the club was supposed to be negotiating with. It sounds like there has been nothing done at this time. So how does that play out? I'm interested to see how some of the bigger players like Matias Rojas, what happens with him. That he's a guy that I thought was going to perhaps get picked up by San Diego FC if there was going to be a big impact move being done. So that I think is going to be a little bit slower than people anticipated, but I think there will be some excitement at the end of the day.
Is Roos not coming back to Seattle, do you think, or what would it take for him to come back?
Hey, that's a great question, and let me try to compartmentalize everything that's going on with Seattle. So look, this Jesus Ferreira move, very likely move, gives Seattle a little bit of options, right? I mean, I've been saying for a long time that Albert Rusnak, who was at a 2.3 salary or so, he was going to ask for a raise. That was going to be that was going to be for sure. There was no doubt in my mind about that. I think he would be asking for about $3 million. I don't know if Seattle would be willing to pay him that. I don't think that they should. I mean, $3 million is a lot of money for a Cam at his age. So do they play a little bit of hardball? What I know is that the team wants to bring him back, that they are appreciative of what he's done for the team. He's been extremely productive. He's been a guy that has grown into that position, and he's coming off his best year. So do they want to bring him back? Yes. I think that right now the probabilities are high that he returns, but it's going to end up being a thing of how much money are you asking for? And does Seattle call the bluff? I mean, you and I both know that my agent is going to go for the highest number he can possibly get to get you to fold. And then, just like as you would in a car dealership, you're like, all right, man, you don't give me that lifetime oil change and free warranty, man, I'm walking out the door. How far off the dealership is Seattle willing to let Albert Rusnak walk? That's going to be interesting because a guy like Jesus Ferreira can provide some of those things. We talk about Jesus Ferreira, right? And that is a situation where if they can reconstruct his contract and figure out a way that not necessarily taking a pay cut, but manipulating everything, can you bring him in without being a DP player? Then that gives you an option if you're Seattle. If you move on from Albert Rusnak, can you go out there and get another player? I don't foresee that happening. They would perhaps give the DP to Jesus or maybe a Jordan Morris and use that more as a economic format to just kind of move around some money within, like Garth Lagerwey used to do back in the day. So I think Albert will be back if I was a betting man. But I think there's going to be some real poker faces in that room. And it's going to be interesting when each of them show their cards. So I feel like it's going to be a slow negotiation, and we'll see how it plays out.
Now, I mentioned, since you were mentioning Rusnak and Ferreira, I went ahead and checked out the last numbers from the pay window for both. And you've got Rusnak's numbers right there, 2.15 million base, 2.221 and 2/3. That's the full compensation package last year for Rusnak. Ferreira, by comparison, is almost a wash. 2 million base, 2.204. So basically, you're looking at $17,000 difference in full compensation last year with Albert Rusnak and Jesus Ferreira. So they're same ballpark, but to your point, I am intrigued to see what the agents will be asking for in these particular situations, since they're basically the same financial layout from last season.
Right, and that's kind of the interesting part, right? Because I understand that fans are not going to be excited about a signing like Jesus Ferreira because they're waiting for this huge signing from abroad that's going to come and change the face of the franchise. But if you put that move in a vacuum and you look at it for what it is, I mean, Jesus Ferreira is 23 going on 24. He's a high prospect guy, a guy that was supposed to be in Europe about a year ago. That's a U.S. men's national team that can do a lot of different things, that has been productive. Maybe not the last couple of seasons between injuries and, quite honestly, the S show that Dallas has been in so many ways. And so I have a hard time blaming Jesus all on his own. So when you have a guy that has a high ceiling and you can get him on a free, and again, my understanding is that the plan is to bring him as a non-DP player. I mean, that's a hell of a move. Now, is that amplified by you doing more? That's where I'm not sold. That's where I'm not sure if in this specific window that's going to happen. So when you go into a Club World Cup with David Ferreira as your big signing, I understand where people would be critical and would not feel as excited as they perhaps would have with another bigger name. But again, Craig was very transparent when he came to this. I asked him, hey, is there an obligation for you to go out there and get a big name outside of MLS? Someone that's proven, not a high-end prospect, but someone that's proven. And he literally said, the only thing I'm going to push back on is outside of MLS. So it makes sense that this is that guy that they were looking at. This is the guy that's going to be their big signing. So we'll see how it plays out. But I understand why people would be a little bit critical of the move. But again, in a vacuum, individually, the move is a good move.
Okay, so what's going on with Pulso Sports on the soccer bar so folks can, when they stop watching us, gravitate toward you? What's going on?
Well, we're not going to have a soccer bar today, as we're going to have our final end of the year show next week on Monday. on Pulso Sports, man, I'm running around like a chicken with my head cut off right now. I'm actually be taking a call here after I'm done with you. Try to get as much as I can on other potential moves into MLS. I'm going to try to break something as always here at the show. I do want to have another open mic with fans about this whole thing. We had one last Friday and it was a success. People got to talk, people got to ask their questions. So I might do one similar in my X space, and then we're going to put it up on our YouTube channel at Pulso Sports. But we're working on a couple of things. I'm hoping to get Jeremiah, maybe Ari, to put together a roundtable, Jackson Phelps perhaps as well, to talk about a lot of the signings, where the Seattle Sounders are going, and what the expectation is going into 2025, just to close out the year with a big bang. But, I do want to say that I'm very happy with the way the year has kind of pulled through. I really appreciate you, your audience. So check it out. We'll be at Pulso Sports. End of the year stuff is always kind of fun. It's a rerun of the whole year. It's a little bit of news here and there. I mean, this one started off pretty quickly. That David Ferreira thing came out pretty quickly. Usually it takes a little bit more for the big news to come out, but that's the way the market works sometimes.
No doubt about it. So be safe, my friend. We will catch up with you next time. And as always, what cup of coffee are you on this morning? 2?
I'm in this cup number 3. I've been up since 4, so it's been a bit of a busy morning. But there are a lot of things here in the works, man. I mean, I'm looking at my computer, looking at my WhatsApp, and I think that is going to be a big off season for sure.
Okay. As always, it's going to be great to see what's going on. Love you very much, my friend, and we will catch up with you next time. Enjoy that cup number 3, and we'll see you later.
Sure. Have a good one.